Hello everyone, welcome back to another SMITE video. This is Sylvanus in Arena. Now, I chose to do Arena here because I realized I'd been neglecting the other modes, despite the fact that a lot of people prefer non-conquest. So we're going to start off with this Arena, but before we get into the Arena, a couple of notes. First off, this video was delayed. I meant to release this yesterday, but I... I had accidentally not unmuted my mic. My mic was muted when I first recorded this voiceover, and I didn't realize that until I was ready to upload it. So this is a re-record of me actually having the audio. So that was my mistake. So this is a delayed video. This was supposed to come out about a day ago. So I apologize for that. Second off, this is a very dominant game. My team really dominates in this match, but this is not to do so much with the team composition as just me being blessed with great allies. I don't actually wind up looking at any of the items because a lot of the times in Arena it's fairly frenetic enough where some matches you don't, and we just keep on rolling, so I don't really have a need to. But at the end of the match, you'll see, and I will talk about how my allies adjusted very nicely to my build. Now, one final point before we get into the video, I want to really quickly talk about where my mind is at this point. Now, I immediately see, of course, that we have 3 damage dealers, Ra, Nuwa, and Cupid, plus Kali. Now, Kali could either go damage, which is what Kali usually does, or she could be going frontline Kali. They have Athena, of course, but if they go with defense Kali, then they'll have 2 frontline, but Kali's damage will be reduced. She'll still potentially hit decently hard, but she won't be doing as much damage. If she's building damage, then we're going to have 4 damage dealers on the enemy team, and I'm going to need to adjust. Now, I play this safe, and I decide right away that I'm going to do one of the strategies that I talked about in the Sylvanus build video, Aura Bot Sylvanus. Considering that we have a Chalk on our team, and Chalk is really good at initiating, I decide at this point that I'm going to be leaving a lot of the initiation to Chalk, and I'm going to hang around with my allies and buff them with auras. That is my goal. Alright, you will see my allies... that is loud. I apologize for that. You will see my allies adjust for this, right? Now, I misfire my auto attack here. If I had timed that auto attack better, I could have pulled that camp over like this. And I'm going to goof this here too, because I wait too long to use the heal. But if I'd done that properly, then I could have hit both of those camps with that heal, and that would have been significantly better. Unfortunately, I messed that up fairly badly. Now, you see the Kali initiate. This is a decent indication to me that the Kali is going to be playing frontline. She initiated that fight. Here's Chalk counter-initiating. You can actually see the Chalk, actually, if you go back 10 seconds. Right, so we're coming in here. Ra, of course, is looking to clear up as many minions as possible. Ra, by the way, plays very aggressively because he has Warlock's staff, so watch the Ra as well. So you can see in the minimap here, Chalk is sectioning off the damage, which is a great response for him. So I'm keeping our allies alive. Chalk is keeping the enemy damage away. He does a great job of this. Right now, I'm trying to extract Chalk. By the way, I have War Flag for all the auto attackers. Chalk goes back and picks up the Nuwa. I get to pull in the Athena thanks to the Danzabur's Sasaki. I try to save Ra here. Not Ra. Chalk, but I do get the Ra killed by rooting him. I used my ult there because specifically we just lost Chalk. The enemy team is respawning. We didn't have the health or mana for this. So I wanted to use my ult to give my team, and especially me, time to flee. Right, so I'm looking to get that Gauntlet of Thebes, of course, because, again, I'm trying to hang back near my allies and buff them and leave the initiation to Chalk. I do have Blink, you'll have noticed, just in case I need to initiate at some points. Never a bad plan to have a backup, and you can see I used it to try to save Chalk and failed. But, you know, again, Chalk initiated here. Danzaboru followed him in. I'm trying to pick up as much as possible. I'm basically trying to make this more worthwhile, right? We have a trade here. There goes Kali. Right, there's Nuwa. She's got almost no mana, so I'm fairly comfortable aggressing on her. You can see also Artemis right behind me. She picks her up, or Ixchel does, and now we gotta leave. So we go back, because I want to get my Thebes, because I want to be stacking those as quickly as possible. Now, you might be wondering really quickly, because Actually, I'll talk about this. I'll talk about builds more specifically at the end of the match. But the reason why I'm not building Prophetic Cloak is because, having already decided I'm going to be playing more of a counter-initiator role, I'm not going to have as many opportunities to build Prophetic Cloak stacks, right? So I'm not going to have as many opportunities to stack those, and it's not going to stack fast enough for my needs in Arena. Okay, that's why I don't have Prophetic Cloak on Sylvanus here. If I was intending to play an aggressive Sylvanus support, maybe it would work. I still would be hesitant. But, again, you can see where I took over the initiative. Actually, let's go back really quick there for a second, if I can find my mouse. There it is. Let's go back for a bit, because you can see Chalk, initiated. He took a good amount of damage here, and you can see where he's trying to extract. He does some damage here, and then he leaves, and you can see him backing up. So I take over the initiation. You can see me aggressively push here. I don't even need to do this with Blink, because Chalk already sort of paved the way earlier. He initiated before I even got there. I was merely carrying through the momentum with follow-up initiation, right? So at this particular point, I was looking for an opportunity to continue initiating, but Artemis very specifically says be careful, which was a clear indication to me that the rest of the team was not as keen on the idea of initiation. So I pull back a little bit. You can see me slowly backing up, and the reason I'm slowly backing up is because I am support. I am looking to try to make sure that no one gets left behind, no one's going to get picked off, so I'm backing up very slowly. The thing that a lot of people don't realize about supports is that the supports don't necessarily choose the speed at which they withdraw. That's primarily, at least for good support, that's up to their allies. Right, I whiff a pull there because Kali aggressed when I thought she was going to pull back, which surprised me a little bit. Another indication she's building defense. We pick up this Ra, my heal or my ult must have killed him. I think it was my heal, actually, because my ult has been down for a while. Get a nice pull in on this Kali. I'm trying to get her killed, but she's just going to jump out. I was hoping she would die before she could get her jump back online, but I was unfortunately mistaken. We don't deal enough damage at this point for that to really be likely. So, at this point, we've killed Kali. Our team has taken a lot of damage. I want to get out. Right? Again, I'm waiting to make sure that everyone else gets out. You can see me turning around occasionally, making sure. I leave. They're all backing up except for Ixchel, of course, who stays around. I get Shogun's Kusari again. We have a lot of auto attackers. Danzabuto and Artemis are hunters, of course. Chalk's passive rewards him for having good attack speed, so I'm going for a bit more attack speed. Again, I have War Flag for a similar reason. Alright, so I'm initiating on Ra here because Chalk initiated on Athena. So Athena is going to be deliberately trying to hold Chalk's attention, so I initiate on Ra instead. Nuwa winds up dying instead, which is fine. We still get a kill. There's Cupid. I almost get that pull. He actually stopped for a second there, possibly in anticipation. If he'd kept on going at that speed, I probably would have gotten him. Maybe I would have missed. The world will never know. And now at this point, again, I'm trying to get my team out. We pushed up. We're not great on health. Right. So back we go. And Athena initiates on us for some reason, which still confuses me to this day. And Chalk initiates with his ult. You see Danzabuto coming in with his ult. I'm trying to lock down this Athena because I can see she's about to die. I barely whiff my pull, but it doesn't matter. She's doomed anyways. Danzabuto picks that up. Now I want to get Danzabuto out of here. He self-extracts using his Saki, and everyone's getting out, so I'm pretty comfortable leaving as well. You can see Chalk backing. Danzabuto is safe. Off we go. So now at this particular point, I'm looking for some physical protections. I decide what I really want at this particular point is the Lotus Sigil, because I want to increase my allies' defense. Again, I am looking for that more counter-initiating type setup. Ra gets blasted by Ixchel. I don't think he was prepared for that, but you can also see, again, you can see how far up he is. I just want you to see he's right here. He's waiting for the minions. That's what he's doing. Gets blasted. I haven't mentioned other times he's been aggressive, mostly because if I mentioned every time he was really aggressive, it would be tiring. But that was a particularly obvious moment. He was just standing there waiting for the minions to come in, and he didn't think Ixchel was going to initiate on him. Because clearly he underestimates the damage output and the crowd control of Ixchel. She's a bit newer, so that's fairly forgivable. Right? So here's Ra. He's, right here. Again, he's looking to get those minions. He actually ults them. Again, just another clear indication of his desperate need for stacks. We'll talk about that a bit more at the end, but I wanted you to notice those specific instances. Right now, at this point, I'm trying to get people away from Kali because she's ulting and is therefore just difficult to deal with, right? She almost took out Artemis there. And now we got to get out. Again, they're respawning. We're low on health, particularly Artemis and I. I want to get my Lotus Sickle so I can increase the protections of my teammates. Grab Sprint, just in case, because Dancebutter doesn't have a great escape. Ixchel doesn't have an escape. Artemis doesn't have an escape, so Sprint is going to be a great solution for all three of those to get out of bad situations if the need arises. We are very ahead at this point, but I'm not going to take any chances. Arrogance has been the downfall of a team more than once. So Athena, what Athena is doing is waiting for, I think, Chalk's initiation. She kind of preempts him a little bit there. I think she was waiting for some kind of opportunity like that. But, you know, it doesn't really make a difference. We kind of have a non-starter there. Kali attacks, Kali leaves. They're trying to get Artemis because she, again, has no mobility. But she had ulted, so she's fairly safe to get out of there. And now we're getting slapped a little bit here. Fortunately, we have our allies coming in. You can see them on the minimap. Ixchel is there. We've got Dancebutter coming in with his ult. We've got, you know, Artemis leaving the fight, which is when I turn around, actually. I just now noticed this. But I've still got teammates in here, so I need to stick around. Pull the Athena, which was a really nice pull. Trying to body block. Chalk is also body blocking here. Dancebutter picks her up, and now we got to get out of here, because we've committed far more. We probably should have left a little bit earlier. Great ult by Cupid there, actually. Dancebutter does wipe him out, though, because he does have a level advantage here. He's got a lot more gold. He's been doing a lot. We obviously have 13 more kills on the enemy team, so we're going to have more gold by nature. And I'm just trying to get Chalk out at this point, because Chalk is hanging around a little while longer than maybe one would normally like, right? So back we go. And grabbing the Stone of Binding, of course. Again, this is more for pulling enemies in. They'll have reduced protections. Rooting enemies, reduced protections on top of the protections my root would already reduce. That's not something a lot of people know about. He has a protection reduction on his root, on his first ability, whenever he hits enemies with it. Again, you can see Athena just kind of waiting for our initiation. And they go on to Dancebutter, who is by himself. This was Chalk and I not paying attention. We should have been there earlier. I have Blink for Pete's sakes. I should have been there earlier. So what we're trying to do now is just sort of recover the situation. Ixchel picks up the Ra. I'm trying to ward off the enemy damage here. I can already see that Chalk and Artemis are going after Kali. Kali herself, I've already figured out, based on the little damage she's taking, is already building tank. Her behavior, her defense, you can see she's not taking that much damage here. You can see she's playing frontline. Very classic, probably a warrior-style build, considering she's still dealing some damage. So I already know that if I can keep the rest of the enemy damage off, she probably can be dealt with. She does kill Artemis here, much to my surprise, but I think she was waiting for her ult, which was a miscalculation on my part. I whiffed my pull, which is a little unfortunate, but it's not hugely problematic. Danceburto's coming in, but we're getting surrounded, right? So I kind of want to leave. Chalk is also trying to leave, you can see him, but Danceburto goes in. Now we've got a whole new problem, right? So now I'm trying to save Chalk, and I'm keeping an eye on Danceburto in the background there. But I make a decision here that I'm not going to be able to save him, right? He's just unlikely to get out, but he gets right here, and I'm like, alright, let's blink in here and do something about this, because I was giving up on him. You could see me backing up, and then he kind of gets out with his leaves, and I'm like, alright, let's make this a commit then. Let's just go ham, right? We're ahead. So I'm trying to get something out of this. Dancebutter did, in fact, come back in, which is absolutely insane. I throw a random pull out. I'm not even sure what I was aiming at there. I think my mind was split between the two potential targets, and I just broke the, I just split the difference there. Chalk is looking to go back in. I'm not so confident, but Ixchel is blasting Ra, and I already know from earlier in the match that she can blast Ra down pretty quick, so I just need to keep Kali off of her. Kali backs off, and Chalk is engaging her. I'm pretty sure that Chalk is just trying to keep her busy. We do get a trapped Discordia here. She winds up using beads to get out. And, Chalk ults in. We've got Ra locked down. Again, you can see how far up Ra was there. Nuwa as well was pretty far up right there. I am willing to cut her off by risking my life under tower. Root her. Chalk finishes her off. Great. Right, Kali is trying to defend the portal at this point. By the way, quick shout out to the enemy team for not surrendering, despite the fact that this is a really gross situation they're in. They are at a huge disadvantage. Great pull, by the way, of the Kali. I'm not sure it'll matter. She does ult here. in an attempt to try to pick something up. I'm pretty sure that Artemis was her target, but she does go down to Artemis. Unfortunately, Artemis is unable to extract after that. We have Ra, again, being very aggressive here. You could see he was actually going behind our team for a little bit there. And now we're just trying to get this Minotaur going here. Kali making an effort to stop it. I wouldn't normally have advocated pushing this, since we just wiped the enemy team and we're not in great condition. And you can see where half the team, well, Ixchel backed. Artemis obviously was dead. But we do get the Minotaur in, or the Minotaur does get in. I want to say we distracted them long enough for the Minotaur to get in. And now I want to leave, right? There's no Minotaur. We're not in great condition. We need to get out of dodge, right? This is getting to be a pretty sketchy situation here. So, here we are. Upgrade to War Banner because I still want to increase my allies' attack speed. I want to get Toxic Blade. Now, Toxic Blade is interesting on Sylvanus. I actually want to talk about this really quick for a second. Now, Toxic Blade as an anti-healing item is unusually effective on Sylvanus because it does give him a little health, it gives him a little move speed, but his AoE auto attacks means that Toxic Blade is actually going to be a stronger than average item because you can actually theoretically proc that on multiple targets at the same time if they're standing close enough. Furthermore, on top of that, you also have a stronger anti-healing effect from Toxic Blade than you will with either Contagion or Pestilence. So if you're already building attack speed, which I clearly already am between Shogun's Kusari and Warflag, I already have some pretty increased attack speed options here, so Toxic Blade is going to be a more effective anti-healing method for me than Contagion or Pestilence would be in the same scenario. So just a quick moment there for that. Right? So then we're, I'm just basically waiting for the enemy team to come out. There's Ra blasting me, that's fine. I think Nuwa's in here, I am correct. So, just root her, get her killed. There it is. Accidentally steal that with a auto attack. I apologize for it. Ra plays that pretty well. I think I would have missed anyways, but he did anticipate that correctly. Kali trying to, get out of there. Danzaburou committing way too hard, so now I gotta dive just to make sure that he doesn't die. There he goes. There Kali goes. Nuwa gets taken out again, which is great for us. I try to get Ra killed. I almost give this, mostly the chalk body blocking there saved that. Right? We've got the enemy team right here. We've got a lot of people there. I can see the Cupid back there. Cupid obviously has given up on this fight. And I can see Ra coming out here. And this isn't Ra, this is Kali. Ra's on the other side. Kali coming out here, and again, Kali, I've been trying to keep an eye on because she is a bit spookier. Great pull by me, but it's not going to be enough, I don't think. No. Oh, that was Nuwa dying. Elsewhere. Take out Kali again. Minions go in, and we win. Now, we didn't win because of our team comp. Obviously, frontline Kali isn't ideal, but it theoretically would be serviceable. Where our team won was the incredible amount of coordination that we did item-wise, because I very clearly, right from the get-go, had a plan in mind. I built Warflag, and I want you to see how the rest of my team responded to that, because they responded fantastically. Ixchel, of course, being a mage, doesn't care that I was building auras that much, right? And you can see throughout the match that a lot of, allies, actually, we're going to go back, we're going to leave it paused, but we're going to go back to a bunch of times, like, where, I'm right here, and you can see Danzaburou, actually, we'll unpause it really quick. Danzaburou goes in really ham, and I move specifically to get close to him, right? I'm not just cutting off Kali here, I'm moving closer to him, and you can see if you go through the video various times that a lot of the times I will be, in this particular instance, I was trying to lock in the Ra, but you can see how far up Artemis and Danzaburou came. They came as close to me as possible, and that's not accidental. They were very specifically... Oh, wait. Yeah. They were very specifically moving up so they could be in my aura range. And if you go back and watch key fights, some of the more significant mid-game fights, you can see that they were doing that. And that's because they realized, hey, he's got Warflag, he's got Shogun's Kusari, he's got Thebes, he's got the Lotus Sickle, he's going to increase our attack speed and help us be tankier. Even Ixchel, who didn't really need attack speed, obviously, would make some efforts throughout that match to be a little bit closer to me, as well as Chalk. Now, when Chalk... I'm sure Chalk probably checked what I was building because he came out a little bit later. I'm sure he was waiting to see what I built when he saw the gem. that would likely lead to Thebes, he went for Prophetic Cloak. Now, Chalk can get away with Prophetic Cloak a little bit easier than Sylvanus, obviously, because he's more aggressive. He's much more melee, he's much more in the thick of combat, right? So he's better at building Prophetic Cloak stacks. And then, as his third item, when he realizes that I am going for Shogun's Kusari, he grabs Talisman of Energy. Now, I don't mind having multiples of the same aura, specifically two. Two of a given aura isn't necessarily a bad thing. But in this particular case, because we were already at this point by the third item so far ahead, having only the one aura was going to be just fine. You can also see where Danzaburou built Shinsai's a little earlier than maybe you would normally expect to see it, right? I typically advise people, hey, when you're building Shinsai's, build it in the back half. Build it 4th, 5th, or 6th, because it's not going to be hitting as hard in the early game because your attack speed isn't going to be as high and the enemy's max health isn't going to be as high. Well, because it was really obvious by my third item what I was planning to do, Danzaburou built Shinsai's a little earlier than maybe he normally would. Now, I don't know what Trogdoi 2's normal time period is for Shinsai's, but if it's like most people's, it's going to be item 4 or 5, right? But this is item 3, and I can say with confidence that if he doesn't normally build at item 3, he absolutely built at item 3 because of Chalk and I's grabbing of items that would give him attack speed boost. Artemis went with a completely different direction. Recognizing she didn't need to build attack speed because Chalk and I were going to be boosting that, she went right into just cooldowns. She was obviously ult-botting, but as you can see from Odysseus's bow, here she was also looking to take advantage of the attack speed boost, because of course we're increasing her attack speed, which means more chain lightning from Oboe. So it wasn't that she was just trying to ult-bot, she ult-botted specifically to take advantage of the fact that she didn't need to build attack speed, because Chalk and I were already building it for her, basically, right? And she respected that, and her build kept that in mind throughout. Okay? Now again, Ra, here's the Warlock stuff I talked about. Supremely aggressive building here. If you've watched videos of mine before, you already know that I consider Warlock Staff to be overrated. It's an okay item. I generally don't consider it worth the amount of time you spend stacking it. If you want health, you're better off going Ethereal Staff. If you want penetration, you're better off going with, say, Spear of the Magus, or Rod of Tahuti, right? 10% penetration isn't enough to be building stacks for forever for, in my opinion. But it's especially difficult in Arena, where you have to compete for those stacks. This is why Ra's level 18, despite having died 10 times, and most of the rest of the team is level 17. This advantage came from Ra, putting himself, as I mentioned, twice in the match, and you can see throughout the match, Ra was extremely aggressive. He was very much up in the front lines, and while Ra can play effectively that way, he wasn't doing it due to wanting to play Ra in an effective frontline high danger role. He just wanted the stacks. He built Rod of Tahuti as his third item. Now, Rod of Tahuti is a great item on pretty much any mage, but as a third item, it's very, very expensive. Okay, this is an incredibly expensive item to build. He really shouldn't have built this third. This should have been 4th. I would say if he built Spear of Desolation as his third item, he probably would have done a little bit better. Spear of Desolation has flat penetration, which makes a bigger difference in the early game. It gives you 10% cooldowns. Its passive is useful across the game, so building it early is really beneficial, and it gives you a good amount of power. Obviously, Rod of Tahuti gives you a lot of power, but Spear of Desolation is significantly cheaper. So for the Ra's 3 main problems here was Warlock's staff being very unmanageable in Arena. In other game modes, not a bad pick. I personally would probably go for Book of Thoth if I was going to be stacking with Ra, but that's a personal preference. But in Arena, it's just too unwieldy, it's too unmanageable. By the time that Warlock's staff stacks fully, you're having probably died a few times more than you would like, because you do have to be, again, very aggressive to snap up all those minion kills for your stacks, and those are his first 2 mistakes, is his high aggression looking for stacks, and building the stacking item itself obviously would cause that. But his third unrelated mistake to that is building the extremely expensive Rod of Tahuti as his third item. Okay, he really, considering he was already behind, this was just going to double down on him falling behind, because it was going to take him way too long to build this, given he was behind. If he was ahead, this would make a little bit more sense. I still wouldn't necessarily personally do that. It's still a very expensive item, even if you're ahead, but at least if you're ahead, you can manage the cost a little bit better, you can get it online a little bit faster, and it's going to be a speed bump at worst, right, if you're ahead. But he wasn't ahead. He was behind, and he was behind by a pretty good amount by that point, at least his whole team was, to the point where that was just not going to be very manageable. Okay? It just was an impractical choice given his situation. The Athena did fine. She did her best with what she had. You can see she was, halfway through the match, she switched to trying to counter-initiate, so kudos to her for that. Her build is actually pretty good here. She was prepping to get the the heroism, I believe it's called, the green one that gives a health shield whenever you get hit by a hard CC. That was going to be great. I mean, Danzaburou has some difficult crowd control. Ixchel has a lot of crowd control. Artemis has her traps and her boar. Of course, I was going to be bringing in a bunch of crowd control. I have a pop-up, I have a root, and I have a stun with a pull. That was not a bad starter item choice, right? And she was going for some great choices here. Prophetic Cloak, Breastplate of Valor, getting that 30% cooldowns, Oni Hunter's Garb for some mitigation and magic protections. This is probably going to be Glad Shield, so she could contribute to damage a little bit. Athena's fine. Same thing with Kali. Kali is technically fine. Kali isn't a great frontliner because she only has the one crowd control, but her build itself isn't all that bad. I mean, she's got auto attacks, and Cupid has auto attacks. Nuwa's auto attacks are at least able to give a root, so going War Flag isn't a terrible idea here. Not my personal preference in the situation, since Nuwa isn't... Nuwa can be an amazing auto-attacking mage, but she has to be built specifically for that, which Nuwa wasn't doing here. Alright, Nuwa was clearly building for ability-based damage, which is fine. Don't misunderstand me. Building for ability damage on Nuwa is fine, but she can do a really strong auto-attack game. It's weird. And either Kali was hoping she would do that and missed the guess, or she was basically buffing attack speed so she could grab chin size and deal some damage later on, or Nuwa basically missed the cue here. One of these three. Which one you believe is up to you. I'm not sure which one of the three it is myself. It could be that Kali just wanted to boost her attack speed to help with chin size. It could be that she was hoping or expecting Nuwa to go attack speed and Nuwa didn't, or Nuwa wasn't paying attention and didn't adjust her build accordingly. I don't know which one of these three. My personal guess is Kali just wanted the increased attack speed because, while again, Nuwa's auto attacks do provide that root, every 5th auto attack of Nuwa's gets a root. That's not necessarily going to be something you want to be investing so heavily in attack speed for. It is also possible that she built the War Flag and the Talisman of Energy because neither Nuwa nor Ra have any kind of escape, for a very similar reason that Artemis and Danzaburou would benefit, well, hell, even Ixchel would benefit from Sprint when I built Sprint specifically to help my allies either get into or get out of fights because they don't have any kind of real initiation or escape. That could be the kind of idea that Kali was going for. I would believe this more if Kali had picked up Sprint herself. She picked up Beads, which indicates a certain amount of self-preservation. But we'll never know. The Cupid's build was fine, except it was really out of order. He built Rage last. Now, obviously, of course, again, the Cupid clearly gave up partway through. He was standing under the fountain for most of this. I hadn't realized that until yesterday when I was recording this, the recording without my audio. And I realized that the Cupid was back there in the middle of the fight. I didn't notice that Cupid was missing. That's why he's 1 and 2. It's because he was just singing in Fountain. But it is, I just want to really quickly mention this. Even when he was playing, he had dominance. Because, look, how do I know that he didn't sell his items and just rearrange them just to troll his allies? Because despite sitting under Fountain, and still having the least gold, he had the least gold by a decent amount, by at least 500, he still had approximately the same number of items as Nuwa, so he didn't sell anything and rebuy different items, because that would have put him at least part of an item down, right? He had full items here, So he never sold anything. So this is his actual intended build. This is the build he was going for before he stopped playing. That's how I can tell. Because if he had sold something, it would have sold for like 2/3 of its actual price. So he would have lost money and he wouldn't have had a complete rage at the end there if he'd done that. So this is his build. And the main problem here is the position of dominance and rage. If you're going to build rage, you want it to be item 2 or 3. Period. You want that to stack, and you want it to stack ASAP. So you can get your crits online, and you can really start to plug people with a devastatingly high percentage of critical hits. Dominance, outside of Assault, really wants to be a back half item. It gives you 20% penetration on all of your basic attacks, or your auto attacks, which you only really need in the back half of the game when the tanks finally have built up enough protections to make that necessary. Okay, it's not something you want to build item 2 unless you're in Assault, and if you're in Assault, you're only buying that for the MP5, and there are better items for that anyways. But that's the main issue here. Odysseus Bow? Totally fine. In fact, great in Arena. Chin size? Totally fine. Maybe not what I would have gone for with our team composition. We only had the 2 frontline, Chalk and I. I think chin size wasn't necessary here, but not necessarily a bad item. It's his 4th item, well positioned, etc. It's just, if he'd swapped the dominance and the rage, he would have been much better off. Alright, Nuwa's build is fairly bog standard, except for the slightly expensive Chronos Pendant, but she wanted to ult bot, which is less necessary in Arena, honestly, so that's more of a issue specifically with playing Nuwa in Arena. Don't ult bot as Nuwa in Arena, it's not going to be worth it in the long run. She really should have probably gone with Spear of Desolation as her 2nd item, and hold off on Chronos Pendant until she really actually could deal some legitimate damage with her ult. Alright, but I did want to talk about this. This is a demonstration that not only is the team composition important, but more importantly is how well you work together. The Chalk, the Artemis, and the Danzabaru saw the war flag early on and immediately knew where I was going, and they adjusted. Chalk picked up Prophetic Cloak and Talisman of Energy. Great. Danzabaru, early chin size. Artemis went for the ult bot, was picking up some attack speed benefiting items a little bit later on. Her last item probably also would have been chin size. Alright, they adjusted. This is why in a lot of matches you want to check what the builds are so you can adjust as needed. Now, why didn't I check? Primarily because I already knew that the best option for my team at that point was going to be boosting them, was going to be counter initiation. Alright, I knew Chalk was going to initiate better than me because he can teleport to that axe and he can ult after that. He doesn't need Blink to initiate like Sylvanus does, so I knew he was going to be better at it. I picked up Blink as an emergency backup. My best job was going to be sticking with the damage dealers and keeping them alive. They had a Kali, they had the long range raw ult to worry about. I didn't want any of them getting caught off guard. Again, Kali could also be used as a target for Athena's ult. I wanted to be as close to them as possible to keep them alive, because at that point, I didn't think that Kali was going to be building tank. She did wind up doing so, but I didn't think she was going to initially, until I started seeing her damage go down, both the damage she was taking and the damage she was dealing. Alright? The important thing is that my allies adjusted. And if they had an issue with the build, they could have just typed. They didn't have an issue with the build because they also recognized the same thing I did. Best option here, Sylvanus hangs with the damage dealers. Right in front of them, ideally. Close by, but in front. Provides auras. Chalk initiates. There were a couple of times where I initiated. Absolutely true. But these were either on the highly aggressive Ra, who was very easy to initiate on because he was so aggressive in a lot of that match, or I used Blink for it, right? Or, like that one time I pointed out, I was following up on Chalk's initiation after he had to bail out due to damage, right? And that's one of the... This is usually the way I approach Sylvanus. This is why this looks like I mean, sure, I missed some abilities here, but this is why I was fairly smooth with a lot of my choices here, is because this is how I like to play Sylvanus. This is how I perform best as Sylvanus, and this was a really great demonstration of Sylvanus in a team fight. Granted, again, it's pretty important that you have a warrior that knows how to initiate and can do so effectively and consistently, and we had that with Chalk, which was really great. But this came down to a combination of items, item building, and recognizing, okay, so best option for Sylvanus is this, so in order to help the team, I need to do this, and if we do these things, we will have a better time, and we absolutely did, okay? Don't discount somebody based on their god choice, okay? Look at their items. There are a lot of different ways you can approach a god and play a god. Again, I mentioned earlier attack speed Nuwa, which is very powerful in the mid to late game. But it takes specific items, it takes a bit of a playstyle adjustment. One day I'll cover this. But with that being said, I did want to point this out, right? And you can see how often the Danzaburou came up and aggressed with Chalk and I because we had our auras to increase his attack speed. You can see how often the Artemis charged forward to be in our aura range. You can see it throughout the match. Again, they go out of their way to either stick really close to Chalk or myself. Throughout the match, you can see this, right? I can actually pick random points here in the match once I have Shogun's Kusari, right? And I just want to mention one other time. So I move over here to be near Danzaburou, right? Danzaburou initiates on Athena, right? He gets taunted in too. That's fine, right? I move forward. Danzaburou moves forward, all right? And he sticks pretty close, right? He comes right up here. He stood there a moment in his bamboo because he wanted the defense boost. But you can see them aggressing here. I'm trying to stay in range. I'm looking to see what they're doing. I'm keeping up with Artemis here, right? I move over to the right. Danzaburou comes back in because he had left because he was afraid, which is understandable. He comes right up here. Look how far up he comes here, right? When he wants to get away from Kali, he goes right to me, okay? My teammates 100% very much were aware of my build and Chalk's build and moved to take advantage of that. Whenever you're in a match, anytime you're in a match, check what your support is building. Is it going to be important for you to be standing near them? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Ixchel didn't need to stand near Chalk and I because she didn't get as much benefit. Yes, she got the defense boosts from Thebes and Prophetic Cloak. Very true. She got the move speed boost from Talisman of Energy and War Flag. Very true. Which made it nice for her to be in range, but she didn't need it. Not as much as Artemis, who gave up almost entirely on attack speed because we were building it for her, or Danzaburou, who built specifically to take advantage of the fact we were boosting his moves, his attack speed. All right. Just pay attention to what your support is building, what your front line is building at the team phase, and make decisions accordingly. All right. But with that being said, thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.